Good evening and happy Black Friday and day after Thanksgiving. This is Ryan from Parent Dome, your host for the Internet Safe Kids Show, and I hope everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving. For me, had my in-laws joining us from New England, did the family tradition of the meal preparation and all of the special things of the special dishes that are part of my wife's family culture, and it was a delightful time, and I hope you all had a great time as well. I want to start off the show like I did last time and offer a couple of disclaimers. First of all, I am not an attorney. So the legal things that I may be sharing with you in any episode are coming as a function of the research that I have done in talking to judges, to attorneys, to law enforcement officers, in addition to some of the documents that I've read in case law. So that is opinion. That is based upon my interpretation of those conversations. Whenever I am making anything related to a legal statement, I say, please consult an attorney. That is your first and foremost action when dealing with kids and risks associated with the internet. The other thing is, I'm not a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist. Happen to be married to a clinician, but that's not my formal training. But I have done also a fair amount of research on those topics as well. And in my website, I have access to the download papers of my findings in the research, and I also offer my thoughts and opinions on those topics as well. So I want to put that out there that I get passionate about my topic area, and it does have a tendency to sound authoritative, but that is not. It's just my passion, and I say, please hold all of my thoughts captive based upon where you are as a parent, what you would like to have as a result as you're putting your child out, as it wraps around your worldview, and then take everything that I say and reconcile it based upon what the law is or what the psychology is on your own research. So that's kind of a buffering statement. And then also, I want to apologize in advance that my speech can also be very inflamed, and I get very passionate about a topic, and it can be perceived as being judgmental. And I'm trying to scrub that out of my being completely because I know dynamics inside the family are unique, they're diverse, they all come in different shapes, sizes, and flavors. And everybody is at different stages in their relationship with their children, emotional development. And I'm making generalizations based upon that same statement as to where do we want our children to be as they grow up. So if it comes out as sounding judgmental, I apologize because that is not my intention. My intention is to focus on my three topic areas as it relates to keeping kids safe on the internet. It's about awareness. So I want to increase parents' awareness on the good things and the bad things on the internet. Talk about oversight and what does that mean? Oversight being the eyes on our children's activities on the internet. And then the third thing is control. So when I speak about those, if you perceive it as being judgmental, please, that is not my intention at all. So while I'm doing this broadcast, we have the ability for me to address comments. You can call in at 919-518-9773, or you can come in via Skype at computers 2K voice, and you can participate in the chat roll on the side and post questions. So we have a couple people in there now. Tonight's topic, I'm going to go over, wanted to do something that I did last episode, that I gave you a little bit more insight into myself personally, what put me on this journey. And I wanted to add on that put another milestone in that journey for you to understand why I am passionate about this. And then I'm going to move into three topic areas. And one is going to be about the importance of passwords. How do we handle, manage, and authorize passwords? Next will be encryption, the importance of encryption. And that is not just a child thing, that's a parental thing. And then the third is a good application for text messaging to help parents and to help children. So that's what the format of the program is going to be. So if you do want to join in on Skype, you can do that at Computers 2K Voice. Put in comments in the chat section and I can address those. Also, if you have ideas on topic areas that are important to your family in dealing with technology and your children, whether it be the smartphone, whether it be the PC, whether it's engagement on YouTube or it's in video games, I'd be pleased to get your feedback and tailor a message around that. Now, when I'm also speaking, a lot of this is kind of like an abbreviation of the lesson content that I have back at my website. My website is an educational platform that is focusing on those three areas: awareness, oversight, and controls, educational format, lesson-based structure with over 300 and plus expanding lessons, the download area I mentioned earlier. What I'm referring to when I'm speaking on this show is coming from that area, but it's an abbreviated format. The lesson goes into more detail on those topics. As an example, how do you stay atop of all of these different apps that kids are using? We'll have one section just devoted to apps, and as new one comes up, I add more information about the good sides of the app, the dangerous sides, and you get to make your choice as it relates to your child. So, very good. Let me get started. I shared about my journey and how I've gotten a little bit more focused. Well, I want to share something that happened personally within our family in my daughter's experience in a social media application. She had been involved in an application called Ask.fm, and I had mentioned this previously. And in that application, she had been approached by some very evil people on the other side of the connection asking her questions. And it got to the point where she did something that in our worldview was inappropriate. Wasn't against the law. It wasn't something that would affect her permanently, but it was for my wife and myself, our determination as to the way we want our daughter to conduct and respect herself. It went out of bounds. So I mentioned that I became involved in that communication, wound up participating in that communication, and found this gentleman and identified that he had been a predator to a whole host of girls. Well, not only did we get that young man brought up, not a young man, he was in his 20s, and he had been a predator to numerous minor girls under 14, 13, 12 years old. My daughter was 12 years old when this took place. So this young man was prosecuted and brought up on charges for what he had done. But I took that as a springboard to go into my friend community. I relied upon my friends to help me find this individual. I went to the police to find out how do they handle these type of events. They said that they wanted to gain access to my phone. So now I went into an attorney and I'm talking to an attorney. So this was me really diving deep into how does the system or how do the resources respond to these kind of issues. And I had conversations with my friends and they said, Ryan, you should talk to some people that have already been down this path, that they're already been litigated against or on the predators list or some of that horror. So I don't know those people. So I wound up being introduced to a couple of those people, and I started getting deeper and deeper into how bad this was. So when I went through this, I was like, well, what resources are available to parents to be aware that this is going on, and to what extent it's going on, where it's happening, what happens when we have something negative happen to us. So I did this research. And then as I became kind of like the local expert, I was invited to participate in presentations, 15 minutes here, half hour there. And I would get up and I would do my conversation that was on those 3 points again about the awareness, oversight, and controls. And the audiences grew. And as I was gaining more information, I was creating an archive of what I was finding and putting it in a format that was easy for me and it was easy for me to share with people. And as my presentation audience got larger, that I would be before 200 people, 300 people, my presentation time would get longer from 30 minutes to 45 minutes to an hour, that I had the ability that I could speak into some of the real horrors of what are going out there. And my resources of the stories just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that happened. That is happening to this day. That there are horrible things that are coming across my email and through my Twitter feed, and images which will make your stomach turn. So when I would conclude a presentation, I would have a line of parents wanting me to, one, help them be proactive to set up a good defense for how to protect their children. And then I had another segment of the audience where the parents were already experiencing the trauma and the evidence that I was pointing out to them. They were saying, oh, that's my kid. Oh, that's my kid. Help me find what's causing this. And unfortunately, when 80% of an audience lines up after a presentation in a sense of crisis, I couldn't address those 80% of the people. There's not enough time. That I'm there, I'm hired to do the presentation, and I'm willing to take questions, but I don't have the time to answer everybody's individual problem. So recognizing that shortcoming drove me to try to create a methodology that I could take all of this information and put it in the hands and access to people that they could consume it in a way that they would need to. And I'm not saying how anybody consumes information. I'm saying I have a library, a catalog, a syllabus of information. And if if your child is not participating on Tinder, well, you don't need to study about Tinder. But if your child has a Tinder app on their phone, it would be cool if you had a resource to tell you what Tinder was about. Or if you have these things that are on your phone that you don't know what they are, well, you have a resource to find out what they are with the good and the bad and to help you make a decision. So my finding when I was doing all this research, there was no single destination, that there wasn't a destination to deal with the complexity of the internet. This is not just the devices, this is the connection and the devices that the connection passes through, the routers, through the TVs, through your thermostat, anywhere that data connection passes through is part of a risk point for our experience and privacy. And on my next episode, next week, I'm going to spend a fair amount of time talking about the issue of privacy, expectation of privacy, what does the privacy provide in law. I'm going to share with you what some of the actual contract documents from the cellular carriers say that you have signed on, where they're deferring their responsibility and put it firmly in your hands. And what does that mean in privacy? So that will be the next episode. So that was the reason I have gotten to this point, because there was so much pain. Personally, I experienced the pain. I became aware of a larger audience which was having the pain, and the kids were the commodity that was getting compromised, and that struck my heart. So that's why I went on this journey, and it is really laser focused, and I'm rallying people around me that are in support of me getting this message out further and to help me enhance the tools and services that I provide, all in an effort to help keep kids safe, talking about awareness, oversight, and controls. So that was a little more of the personal journey about me and what's brought me to this point. So just a little reminder, you can call in at 919-518-9773, or you can Skype at Computers 2K Voice. So I mentioned about passwords. That's one of the topics I wanted to go over. Most electronics devices are secured via a password. Now, if we have your TV, if you have a smart TV, has parental controls built into it, and you can have passwords put in it, and you have the ability for multiple levels of passwords, that you can have a child password, you can have an adult password. Your computers have the ability to have passwords or passwords with different users. Your router has a password. Smartphones have passwords. So as I want to talk about specifically children, I'm going to talk about that in just a moment, but it's very important for parents, if you have multiple devices, that you don't use the same password through your entire network, that you utilize passwords that are not just 3, 4, 5, 6 digits, that these are things that are more, they call them AES, encryption type of passwords, key phrases, passphrases. And unfortunately for people, it's very hard to remember passphrases. And if you're using characters and they're case sensitive, it becomes a problem. But it is a great discipline if you are managing multiple things in your life that are a digital connection. If you have an account with Netflix, you have an account with Hulu, you have an account with Amazon, you have an account wherever you have these digital accounts with your bank, wherever your dry cleaners, you all these accounts that are on the internet are going to have some password approval process for you. Well, smartphones, laptops, all have the ability for software applications that can do password management for you. So there's one that I use quite frequently. It's called KeePass. KeePass is available on my desktop. It works on Windows and on Mac. There's also a function, one that works on your cell phone, that it's a library where you can store all your passwords and you can have them encrypted, that they are a text string that is so strong that computers can't break it, or a robot can't break that pass key. Well, the challenge is on how do you continue to retrieve a password when you go into a site, or do you auto save the password in the site? And those are personal decisions based upon your own efficiency. But I would suggest that having a single location to record your passwords and have them be something more than a 6-digit or 8-digit alphanumeric case sensitive would be a very good starting point, because one of the aspects of dangers on the internet is identity theft. And there are so many tools and resources out there that pirates use to take away your password and gain access to your personal confidential information. This is just one of those defenses that I strongly encourage, that you use strong password encryption in setting up your different accounts. Now, those should be managed by one person. This is also, remember I said about judgment, it's based upon your family dynamic. Our family is that I have one password repository where everything resides. My wife has access to it, and that we share information. There's no hidden activity happening that I am shielding my wife from. That's because of our relationship. That password is for everything: the bank, the healthcare, the insurance, the mortgage, on and on. You know what? I'm going to take a little bit dovetail, because this is an interesting thing that may be beneficial, and that is the passwords is a way to secure and protect how you get into different locations on the internet. I'm also a proponent of securing what you're doing on your PCs and on your laptops and other devices. So this is where we're talking. I'm bridging the conversation into the domain of encryption, that there are tools that you can take your Word documents, your Excel spreadsheets, your PowerPoint presentations, your keynotes, your pages, whatever, that you can put them into a repository that is encrypted. So I can have a container that I create on my desktop that is an encrypted container that I can take my activity in a day and just plop it into this encrypted container that nobody can get access to it. In order to get into that container, which is basically a file folder that I determine how big it should be, is protected with that encrypted password, a very strong password. So here I've got a double level of security, that I have my password safe that's got all of my passwords in it. Then I have a password protected special place, which is encrypted, that all of my data gets hidden inside of. Now, this is, whether you choose to do that for your daily activities and the files and emails that you may be sending, that's a personal decision. But as far as a discipline in our home, that I have taken every piece of sensitive documentation and I've turned it into a digital format. I've recorded it and saved it into that encrypted container on my desktop. I've saved it in an encrypted location out on the web, and I have it on a portable flash drive, a portable hard drive. And that, to me, is part of my stewardship in being prepared to protect my family. That we never know when our house could be flooded out. We never know if our house could ever catch fire and burn to the ground. So it's the what if scenario that I choose to address, that I want to have all the pertinent critical documentation that would take me months to put back together in the event of a trauma. So if my house burnt down, I've got a digital copy of all my photos. I have my mortgage documents. I have my insurance documents. I have birth certificates. I have our wills, all the things that are important to our maintaining our household reside in that container. And I actually take it one step further. This sounds a little bizarre, but because I am the provider for our house and I am traveling the most frequently out of anybody else, the probability of me being my life taken outside of this house is higher than my wife and my daughter. That every week that I record a video, which is like a little message that I want to leave with my wife and my daughter, how I care about them. I do this first thing in the morning when I wake up on a Monday, and I record this video, and this video is just uploaded into that container. So in the event something happens to me or something happens to our house, that file exists. That my wife and my daughter have access to that container that's got all of that information into it with instructions on how to do what needs to be done in the event I'm gone. And I've also done one other thing. I have given my parents access to that file, that in the event of this event with myself, my wife, my daughter, my parents have access to this file and I have instructions for them. So that's just me being proactive and prepared, but that is all in a vault that is personal, private, and cannot be penetrated by anybody. It is truly an encrypted, secured container, and where I put that data doesn't matter. I've actually downloaded the entire Wikipedia, that if I lose power, I have the ability that I can run my generator and I can connect to my laptop, and any question I could need to have answered through Wikipedia, I'll have access to it. It sounds loony, but that's just the way I lose power out of my house quite a bit. And being prepared to me is an important thing, and I just take those steps. So I talked about the importance of the password. So now I want to talk about the password as it relates to the smartphone. So we all have smartphones, and they all have different ways of doing password. You can enter into a number, you can swipe through a series of dots, you can touch on a different aspects of an image. What is another one? Oh, you have the thumbprint. You can do a fingerprint to gain access to it. And from a legal recommendation standpoint, again, not an attorney, the best password protection that you could have on the phone is the numerical passcode. Because in order to enter in that numerical passcode, you have to know that passcode, or you have to have that passcode pulled out of you. So an example, think worst case scenario, that if something happened on your phone and the school principal wants you to show him what happened on your phone, you have no obligation to do that. It's protected by a passcode. The passcode is in the possession of the parent and the child. That's the only two places that passcode should ever get out. No one else should be in possession of the passcode to any device. But when it's in the possession of the child, there is no password just for the child. It's just the parent's password. And the child should be repeatedly told that no one has access to that password. Now, when I say repeatedly, it's where we have these conversations, but we have to do these conversations with a test that I've had the suspicion that kids would give up their passcode if presented that opportunity. So I was at a local fair where this is kind of like a social experiment, a local fair where their teens travel in groups. And my daughter was part of this interspersed traveling group. And I would see a parent that would be watching the teen, and I said, would you mind if I ask to see if your child will give up their passcode to your phone? And they said, there's no way they would do that. I said, would you mind? I'm not going to do anything. I just want to see if this will happen. And I want you to overhear my conversation. So just kind of be within earshot, and I want to ask him. So I walk up and I create this story, and I come up a little out of breath. Hi, my name is Ryan. You know what? I just came up from the parking lot way down there, and my wife is pulling him right now, and I left my phone down in the car. Could I borrow your phone to call my wife so she can get my phone out of my truck before she came up here? Not not an invasive thing. I wasn't trying to do anything threatening. All I was doing was a test to see if that kid would open that phone in my presence with the passcode, and they did. And some of them handed me the phone, and then they would tell me what the code was to get in. So each of these parents knew what I was doing, but I was just showing them that the conversation is not enough, that there's got to be some behavioral things behind that to ensure that that child is not convinced that you are giving that password out. Yes, somebody was just asked a question about which password on a smartphone. So when the smartphones, both the Android and the iPhone, have the ability that you can swipe up and just gain access to a camera, and you can take pictures real fast. But if you want to gain access to the applications, many of them should have the password function already enabled. And if that password function isn't enabled, enable it. That's the first thing. Make sure it is the numerical one. That's my recommendation, and I'm going to explain a little bit further in just a moment, that the numerical one is very secure, and then you have that conversation and test that conversation that the child doesn't give that code out. So the other reason I talk about the pass code, the number, is more of a legal protection. So if something suspicious is happening on your child's phone and you want to protect them, that you need to see what is on there before the police or the school see what's on that phone, because after all, it is your phone. Your child is using it, but it is yours. So you want to make sure that you are legally protected with what's on that phone that you have the contract with, and protect your child. So from a legal standpoint is, you don't want to incriminate yourself. So you don't want to give access to anybody to that information, which could incriminate you. Again, this is you have a lawyer conversation about this. But if there is suspect material on the phone that your kid may have taken, it is your phone. The child, if he's told not to give that passcode to anyone, cannot give that passcode out without the parents being present or a warrant, a subpoena, so that he has to be subpoenaed to get that device to come to the court, and then it has to be forced out of him or her to give up that passcode. Now, the other elements, like the thumbprint or the fingerprint control, the school and or law enforcement could take your child's hand and put it on the phone to release the lock on the phone. Inappropriate, unethical, maybe, immoral, maybe, I don't know. But even from the position of the law enforcement said, if you want to be secure in your rights, make sure you have the pass control, the numeric pass control, because the fingerprint can be used against you, because somebody could take the child's fingerprint and put it on the phone and open it up. And that's just a he said, she said. It's a hearsay conversation. And with the passcode, there is no hearsay. It is either the kid divulged it or the kid did not. And there's no way to gain access to the phone if the kid doesn't divulge the information. And same with the parents. The parents should not divulge that information. So I am a strong proponent of being aware of what your rights are, and to protect yourself from things that could have happened. We all make mistakes. We all make them. And some mistakes are bigger than the others. But at the same time, we live in a country, thank heavens, that we have constitutional rights and privileges that we can stand behind. And this is one of them. I have this right of privacy. I have a right to unreasonable search and seizure. And that is where I am. It's an unreasonable search and seizure, that they can't get access to that device without a warrant. There's a comment in here, and I just wanted to read it. What's going to give a kid the power to tell their principal that they're not going to give out the password? That's very true. This is it's a big issue because authority is a huge power differential, and it doesn't escape us because a man wearing a badge can intimidate us, as will a principal will intimidate a child, as will a college professor intimidate a child. It's the power differential, and I I get that. That it's a very good point. How does the child stand up to the authority? And that is part of the resilience that I talk about as to what kind of child do we want to have. I'm not saying in defiance of authority. It's that the child has the authority to say, yes, Mr. and Mrs. Principal, I understand what you're asking, but my parents have told me that I'm not allowed to give this number out to anyone. Now, if you want to call my parents and have my parents present here and my parents give you that number, that's up to them. But my authority is my parents. I know I'm in the school, but my authority is my parents. My parents told me no. If you want to have the conversation with my parents, then they do. Now, here's the sad thing is that the schools rarely reach out to the parents until after the fact, that the child has unfortunately given in to the intimidation, and then the parents come in. The schools only have an obligation to notify. They don't have an obligation to have the parents in the school. I'm just trying to say, in those circumstances, which it could be dangerous, that you are prepared, that your child says, Mr. or Mrs. Principal, I'm not defying your authority. I am not. This is not my device. This is my parents' device. I don't own this. They own this. They have told me I have not given permission to give anyone access to this device. You can talk to my parents, and if they give you the passcode to get into it, then they've given you access. But I, as the child minor, I can't. A lot of words, but the intimidation thing is a power differential. And some children can stand up and have that conversations. Some children need the help of someone within the school to have that conversation. And some kids in college can't even do that. So it is a valid point. But if you have those things in place, then there's another way around that for inside the school as well. And if you have a child that does not have the propensity to have that kind of conversation, then I would say that you have the ability to control that device while it's in the school's property. When the phone is inside the school and your child is not of the Constitution to stand up to the school, it's locked down. So the school has no access to it. They couldn't do anything if they tried. So it was a very, very valuable question, Florence. I appreciated that. So good. So I was talking about the awareness, the passwords, the encryption, and the importance of using the numerical password to secure the device. The encryption is another piece of how we're protecting our technology, our files, having a repository for all of that information. So the next one I want to talk about it's a combination of the two. It's using a text messaging system that is secured and encrypted as well. So right now, most people are using the default text messaging software programs that come with the phone. So before I continue going down that path, I just want to say that you can call in at 919-518-9773, or you can join via Skype and ask questions in there at Computers 2K Voice.
And I want to add that those of you who are listening and are on the channel page, log into chat. It's to the right of the video where it says enter your nickname or your username, or below the video if you're on your mobile device. You don't have to put your real name. Just put a handle in there and go in, because you're missing a lot of the interaction there. That's it.
I appreciate that, Amnon. That's a great suggestion, and I will make those recommendations in the future. That's a great point. There's been some good contribution over there, which I appreciate. So I was talking about the text messaging. So text messaging is one of the most prevalent forms of communication that kids are engaging upon, and text messaging is the platform in which they're sending the text, the letters and the numbers, the emojis, which are those little smiley face characters or other characters that they put in. It's also a manner where they can attach photos that go out. Now, many applications have their own methodology for which they're going to be sharing photos or sharing the text, such as Snapchat or Kik or Ask FM. If you're using those on the smartphone, they're taking their own kind of platform of how they're sending photos and sending texts. But for all other communication that you are doing via text, most people are doing it with the default application that comes with the phone, messaging or whatever app they have resident on their phone. Now, there are third-party apps available through the iTunes Store or through Google Play that you can change the background of what your texting board looks like. It gives you some additional emojis that you can use, and they can put these GIFs in your text. All cool, kind of fun stuff. Many of those third-party applications have attached spyware behind them. So this is one of those things you have to do a little bit of research on what things you're downloading, what permissions you're giving up when you're downloading these applications. And that's just something as simple and basic as texting. Well, texting is it's a very risky form of communication because everything on the internet is permanent, even though we may think that the delete key may make it go away. Well, that communication that happens on text is permanent, and that text can be shared within groups or broadcast out further. So I'm also a proponent of how you can secure your texting life as well. So there's the name has changed. It used to be called Whisper. I think it's called Signal now. But this is an application, downloadable application for your iPhone and or on your Android that you can download that will encrypt and secure your text messaging. So it's going to be person to person and private, and then has no value outside of that private communication because it's secured and encrypted. So this is just part of that defensive structure, the proactive side on how to kind of live your life in a digitally aware, secure way to prevent some of this bad stuff coming out. So those are the three major buckets that I wanted to touch on tonight. Was on the passwords, the personal encryption. Oh, I didn't mention the name of some software. And this is really dependent upon you as to what your interest level is in encryption. But there's some free tools out there and there's some more advanced tools. But a free tool that I have found very good, it's an open source program. It's called TrueCrypt, like true is, which is the opposite of false, TrueCrypt, CRYPT. And it takes a little bit of time to understand how it works, but the instructions and the tutorials are very clear and concise. They tell you how to set up these containers I referred to, how big you want them to be, how you open them, how do you put things in there. And the other one I mentioned was on the passwords, which was KeePass, which is another free software, is a downloadable on your smartphone device. It's also available for Mac and for PC for managing your password library. Those two things I think are very critical from a parental standpoint regarding our own digital life. As we get more aware of these things, I would also talk about the benefit of encrypting sensitive emails. If you're communicating with your financial advisor, or you're communicating with a bank, they have protocols on how you want to secure that communication as well. So the next thing, I didn't tell you I wanted to talk about this, but I wanted to kind of make you aware of a new trend that is really kicking kicking in in a very sad way. I'm going to go back here and put, if you want to have some correspondence with me over in the chat roll, you can dial in at 919-518-9773 or come in via Skype at Computers 2K Voice. So there's this function called live streaming. I think I may have touched on this a little bit before, but live streaming is where I have a smartphone device that I can download an application, and there's a whole range of applications. And I'll just name them off quickly. Periscope is very getting more popular right now. Meerkat, more popular right now. Some ones that are less popular are Ustream, but that's used for the video broadcast kind of citizen journalism. Appear.in, Zoom.us. These are ones that are more in the business community, but the kids are starting to find out about them. And I'm finding kids in these environments, which is spooky. Blab, BLAB, which is a multi-person live streaming experience. Now you have one-on-one live streaming experience, such as in Skype, which is one or many. Uvu, which is one or many. Some of these have the ability to be recorded. Some of them do not. There's ones that are called chat roulette, that you are sitting behind a screen and you're just kind of spinning a roulette wheel to see who's going to pop up on the next image. Omegle is another one very similar to that. The challenge with these live streaming applications comes into, you have no idea who is ever going to be on the other side of the communication. You may choose to know who you may want to engage in a private conversation, but if you're in a more public forum, you don't know who you're going to engage in. Now we take this stranger danger and we put it with the ability to be recorded. Now, the recording can happen natively within the application, such as Periscope and Meerkat. These are live streaming platforms that I can get on my phone, and I do this. I am a Periscope broadcaster. Then I sign on to Periscope, I put on my location, and I talk to the people that want to hear my message, and at the end of it, I get a recording, a downloadable link as to what I just broadcast. That's permanent. Some people think that if there isn't that email record of it coming down, that it wasn't recorded. Well, because kids are pretty darn smart, they can use software tools to actually screen grab and screen capture and screen record what is happening. And they do that. Many kids do that with their parents not even knowing that this is happening. So what has been really hitting my inbox heavily for the past 7 days is video evidence of kids doing things on live streaming that their parents, some parents have said it's okay, and some parents have no clue. Now, I'm going to talk about my particular role as to me sharing this message about awareness, oversight, and controls. I have many people that are part of the Parent Dome family, many, and they have different skills and gifts. And I am on the gift side of an advocate, that I want to be a voice to empower parents to be aware, to have the oversight and controls. And as an advocate, I operate within 3 spheres: my sphere of care, which is my family, my sphere of concern, which is just outside my family, and my sphere of influence, which is the community at large. Now, the other aspect of my ability is to be a vigilante. Now, my tendency to be a vigilante will only be in my sphere of care. When it's in my family, if it's very close friends, I am willing to do things that are activist, vigilante, do the research to find out who is causing this harm. That's what we'll call that, the investigation to find out who's causing the harm. Outside of that, my sphere of concern, my sphere of influence, I don't have the mental and emotional horsepower to do that. That's just not who I am. I've got enough on my plate and in my head and in my heart as the advocate that it would cause me to go into therapy if I needed to do it greater outside of that at the vigilante side. So I have, during my research, gone on to live streaming, gone and seen what some of these people are doing, gone into the location settings, seen people in their bedrooms doing whatever they do. And my level of involvement was, hey, do you know your parents? Do your parents know that you're doing this? Do you know that you have your location settings on, that I know exactly where you are, and you've invited strangers into this exact location into your bedroom? And some people stop the broadcast. Some people get upset and yell. So I have a bunch of people that are part of the Parent Dome family that are doing that routinely, that they're trying to help young children. When I say young children, I mean 7, 8, 9, 10. Blows my mind that there are young children that young on Periscope at night doing what they're doing. And these people are working as internet parents to get these kids off of the internet, to get them off of Periscope, because they're telling them exactly where they are. They're telling them what time they are, and they're showing them things that they may not show them. And people may ask, well, what are adults doing looking at children? And I'd say, that's not for me. I think these people are out there trying to get these kids off of doing things that could affect their lives forever. So here's what's coming into my inbox, what's coming into my Twitter feed, is that I have people that are sending me links and or screenshots or video captures of these communications. And this is where I want to take the awareness and go, I want to open the eyes a little bit. And I'm not doing this in a judgmental standpoint. This is just to tell you what is the new trend that is happening within the social media circles that people aren't aware of. And I've got tons of these things happening. So I'm just giving you one experience, that there was a young boy who's over in the UK that was wanting to demonstrate his singing ability on Periscope. He was around 9, 10 years old. Young guy, and he had a little cut on his nose because he gotten a cold and apparently had rubbed it, and it was a visible sore that he had. But he was a nice, attractive young little boy, and he wanted to sing to those people that would watch him on Periscope. Well, what happened was you had some of his friends come in from school and were like, hey, sing for us this song, sing for this song. And then some other people came in and started saying some not so nice things. Now, I did not watch this entire broadcast. I just saw what my friends sent to me in a couple of an abbreviated section of this communication. Now, one of the things with Periscope is you have the ability to block things which are offensive, and you can get them out. But that's only if you are capable of keeping up with the comments to be able to get that person out of the room. It's not, if there's a lot of comments flying, it's a very hard thing to do. But that's not my point. My point is, when I was watching this happen, I see this young guy that is wanting to share with his friends his singing, and he was cute. Then some certain comments started coming in which were vile. This is what people refer to the internet trolls, the cyber bullying, and the horrible things of the underbelly of humanity that is going on through the internet. I saw it, and I'm looking at the comments, but what I was really doing was looking at the young boy's face. I was looking at how he responded to those words. And you've heard me say it before, sticks and stones may break our bones, but names will never harm us. Well, as adults, names still harm us. They can't harm us like we're going to need a cast or something, but they're emotionally injurious. So I'm watching this broadcast, and I'm seeing these words come in, and I'm watching what's happening to this young boy. Well, the beginning of next episode, I'm going to share with you a video link that I want people to see. And it is what happens to the children when this is the constant undercurring communication they have. Now, this wasn't the only communication this young man had. He had his friends in this room, but they had this undercurrent of this nasty stuff. And you can see his physical change. If you're into neuro-linguistic programming to any degree and you were to watch this young boy, you could see what's happening to his little spirit. And that's where I'm thankful that I have my friends out there that are going to participate on Periscope and say, first of all, let me teach you how to block this guy. And, oh, you shouldn't be doing this with the location settings on. And if you want to broadcast, broadcast in private. Don't broadcast in public. Broadcast to just your friends. And this young boy had said his parents knew what he was doing, but I guarantee you his parents didn't know the kind of garbage that this young boy was seeing come across his screen. Guarantee it. Because this is part of the awareness that the parents are thinking, instead of taking the child and putting him in front of a TV, which was like the latchkey kids a couple decades ago, we've got the new latchkey device, but it's interactive. The kids are now being sequestered with access to these things nonstop, but it's not just one-way programming. It's not they're watching Teletubbies or Sesame Street or the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They're not. They're communicating with other people through this device where parents have no visibility on it. So I'm coming to the end of the episode. I want to share with you next week a video that talks about what this experience looks like, and maybe play it directly online so you can see what a young boy is experiencing on this form of communication. In my chat roll, I did have a special link up there. Because of Black Friday and Cyber Monday, I created a special link that gives people access at a discounted rate for the holiday. It's a bit.ly, then it's, I should write this, but it's up in the chat roll on the site. It's BLK Friday, like Black Friday, and CYB Monday, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, abbreviated, or parentdome.com. You can get in there. I have the ability to offer you a discount code, a coupon code. I'm going to type that in here right now, and I will say it out loud. There's a coupon code if you choose to register that gives you a 50% discount off of the perpetual membership, and that is using the coupon code SHAMGAR, SHAMGAR. If there's any other questions or things that people would like me to focus on for next week, I'd be willing to take that. And I also, the horrors that I've been seeing that have been coming through this live streaming, I just gave you a minor example of it. It is almost going to eclipse what is happening in the sexting area. As kids become more aware of Periscope, Meerkat, these other live streaming, I anticipate that they're going to migrate off of certain platforms over into that experience. And that's with children. I'll tell you, Facebook is a graveyard for kids. Kids don't want to be anywhere near Facebook. So if you're thinking your kid's on Facebook, they're already over on Instagram, or they've already jumped off to Instagram, they're into Snapchat, or they've jumped off of that, they're into you now, that they migrate. And based upon what is happening, and they're following these trends that are happening in social media, and live streaming is this new trend. I shared with you one that is Blab, BLAB.IM. That is really the domain of like the business professionals and coaches and social media development, and there's interviews going on there. So it's been used as a very much a business platform. However, kids are starting to migrate into it. So kids are testing it in that how bad can they be before they get caught? So they do some not so nice things in this personal environment. There are these other platforms that are like that. They have these private rooms that people are coming in for private video communication. Those rooms can be private that you can't see it, but I have heard about kids going in. I haven't physically seen, I can't get into the rooms to verify that they're doing it, but I have heard kids talk about using that social media platform, appear.in. So my mission is to help parents by equipping them through increasing their awareness, talking about the oversight, providing the necessary controls, that it's all family dynamic dependent. It's based upon your child's emotional development as well, their maturity, and also it's based upon what kind of product you want to put out in a child when they leave your home. Those are things that kind of build the direction of your own decision making as to how you want to equip them as they go out. So I hope everybody had a great Black Friday. I appreciate you spending time with me tonight, and I hope you all have an enjoyable weekend, and I will be back at you on next Friday. Oh my gosh, next Friday is a big thing for me. My wife and I are celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary, so I'm going to have to be creative on how I'm going to pull that broadcast off, because we're getting whisked away to go to where we first met in Annapolis, Maryland. So that's a big milestone. 25 years with the same woman who I adore is a big deal. So everybody have a...
It'll be fine if you don't do it live. It's okay.
Okay, very good, Amnon.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You got to have a life too.
We'll figure it out. Good. So everyone have an awesome night.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.